We are now live. Hello, Lily.
Hello.
All right, here's my cool theme music. M, A. This is theme music by my son.
Small talk. Small talk.
All right. So I tried to do the safety dance. It's a kind of a safety dance.
Oh, I got that for sure.
Yes. So this is, welcome, Lili Zarghami. That was a theme by Elijah Small, my son, my 20-year-old son, who wrote that in London for me. I asked him to do a sound alike of safety dance, and he came up with that. Lili, it is thrilling to see you again. We worked together probably 20 years ago, a lot.
Yeah, we did.
Get into that. But first, I just want to explain who Lili is. Lili is the founder and the president of Jenny Mag. And that is a digital magazine which was launched way back in like January 24, way back.
Yeah, we're almost at 2 years. Mm-hmm.
And it serves women over 40, which is kind of the Gen X, because I'm in my Gen X. It's kind of like Zennial Gen X, Gen Xers, and I guess and beyond. It's a really great read. And the reason that I found you and that this is all happening is because somebody in my comments wrote, whenever I want my Gen X fix, I go to Small Talk and I go to Jenny Mag, and I was like, what's Jenny Mag? And I looked it up and it was like Lili Zarghami, and I was like, Lili Zarghami is like crazy. He was like my editor for 2 or 3 years at Redbook. But anyway, welcome, Lili.
Thank you. So it's so nice to see you again. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you.
Are we finding you in Brooklyn? Is that where you are?
I'm still in Brooklyn. Yep.
So awesome. Well, I left Brooklyn for the West Coast thinking I was going to come here for a year just to experiment, and then never came home, which is a little sad.
It happens though. It's all right. You got nice weather.
Happens. And then, I think as a result, so let me just explain. I used to write something called Diary of He for Redbook, which was a fictional blog about a single guy living in New York, but then he moved to LA because I moved to LA, and it was all about his dating exploits, and he was a bad boy. It was kind of my alter ego because I'm such not a bad boy, but his name was Zach, and Lili was my editor, and she had to endure this weekly. I mean, this guy was bad news. He was
did it start in the magazine? Because when I got there, I was only on digital. I was the digital side of the magazine, but I feel like it started in print even.
It might have. I don't remember if it was in print. I mean, it's such a funny time because it was very the idea of having a blog, like a fictional blog, is so dated now.
I was laughing when you said it. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
It so feels like the ancient days. But it was really funny because a lot of people read it, and that was always
it was super popular. Yeah,
super. It was the successor. Well, it was the sort of like spin-off of Diary of V, which was a female driven one that was written by Laura Dave. Is that her name? Laura Dave.
Laura Dave. Yeah.
Yeah, Laura Dave, who's gone on to become much more successful than me, which is really good for her. But so they had a woman writing this kind of fictional diary, and then they wanted a guy to write it, and they asked me. It was way before your time. I think Jennifer Woodhouse. I don't know if you still keep in touch with Jennifer Woodhouse, who was the editor.
Oh my gosh, yeah, not still in touch, but I remember.
And maybe she's even watching. Jennifer was was my editor at first, and she was the one who brought it to me, and then you inherited. Many different people, I think, inherited it over the years. But you were wonderful to work with.
It lasted forever. Like, you were writing that for a long time.
I wrote it for a really long time, to the point where I tried to make it into a movie or into a TV series because I had so much content. Like, I had years of content, and it was when Sex in the City was kind of happening. And so I was like, well, this is just a male Sex in the City. And it's the craziest LA story. When I first got to LA in 2003, I had a meeting. I had a pitch meeting with Lifetime Networks or something like that. And I pitched it, and the woman bought it in the room, which is where they're like, I want this. Like, don't go to any other people. I'm going to buy this. And I was like, holy shit. This is I've been on the for 3 weeks, and I sold my thing, which, by the way, I don't even know if I own the rights to it. I mean, it's very confusing because Hearst was really so it was kind of a whole.
If you made money, I'm sure you wouldn't own the rights.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I would have had to figure that out. But anyway, she bought the rights. I told this agent that I had at the time, and she's like, that's awesome. And then, never heard back from her again. And that's a classic LA story where it's you know, you think that you've sold this screenplay and your life is
Yep.
set, and then you never hear back. And so that was
nothing is real until it's real.
Right. Nobody knows anything. Nothing is real. So anyway, that's the story of Diary of He. I still sometimes want to revisit it but it's so dated now. The whole idea of it. I mean, he wasn't even online because, you know, it's like, this is like 90s, right?
Yeah.
This is a guy dating in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it was a very different, but anyway, it was such a great, I loved writing. That was really my first experience in writing fiction. I mean, somebody trusted me to write fiction. I had all this time I've been a journalist writing, you know, nonfiction, and all of a sudden I was writing a fictional diary. And yeah, it was
fun
crazy.
though, right? It was fun. It was such a fun read because, you know, everything. I mean, I worked in women's lifestyle content for a long time. It's obviously where I'm working now too as my, you know, side business. But it's like a lot of those topics are kind of heavy, not heavy, but just like emotional and like intense. Right. And reading those fictional diaries, like even at the time it was like a little bit of a joke, but every time they would come in and I would get to read them, it was such a fun
I'm
break. Glad it was so great. It was
I just
really
ran out
fun.
of stories. I mean, to write that for it was basically a book that never ended. So it was a guy's life, his dating exploits, and it was like there was no ending. So it was like the first year was just all my own from my own experiences, like dating. Yeah. And it was like then I had to like I mean, at one point he was dating an heiress to the Westin Hotel Fort. I remember because Paris Hilton was big, so I was like, well, he's gonna date somebody from the Westin family. You know, it was like, he was dating like the West. There's no Westin name. I just made this stuff up. Anyway, it was super fun. But thank you for enduring that for all those years. But let's talk about you. Enough about me. I'm super excited to talk to you because you are. You know, it's unusual to find somebody from the print magazine world who's still working as an editor today.
It is.
And, you know, having that experience and being able to write content. And I think a lot of my listeners and readers are either from that world or, you know, are curious about that world. A lot of them are writers because a lot of Substackers are writers. Yeah. And so I'm curious how this all ended up happening. First of all, let's just talk a little bit about your background. Like you come from, like me, you come from the sort of women's magazine publishing print world, right?
I had an accidental career in women's magazines is what I always tell people. I studied philosophy in the classics.
No
and
way.
Like that makes you unemployable.
Yeah. But interesting, but super interesting.
Yeah, it was. I can hold good philosophical conversation, but I came to New York and I needed a job. I was at school. I needed a job. I started. A friend of mine was working at AOL. If you want to do an even bigger callback to the 90s and early 2000s, and like hired me kind of as a contract. Like, oh, you know how to write. You understand computer, kind of like, and whatever I didn't understand, I could figure out. So I ended up working at AOL, and, you know, one thing led to another. Ended up at Redbook at Hearst for a while, moved on to HGTV and did lifestyle content there, and then was kind of in and out of most of the major magazine publishers on the digital side. So I was always digital. I was never in print, which made me like weird at the beginning and kind of having to be an ambassador to a lot of print editors and writers who weren't totally comfortable with digital. And one of the things that, you know, I try to do is to essentially convey that storytelling is the same. Whatever the medium is, storytelling is the same. So I really, I know I've always kind of worked for a long time in my own demographic. So when I was at Redbook, I was, you know, almost 30, and that was the demographic they were going for. You know, I moved on to other magazines and I kind of kept pace until there's no more magazines. Once you're over 40, like anybody who was publishing anything that was for people who were over their 30s folded the magazines. And
Lears was, I feel like, one of the tried to remember Lears.
No, I don't know that. I know More, which was like probably also like late 90s, early 2000s. And I worked at one of my jobs was at I was overseeing the women's brands for Bauer in the States, which is like Women's World and First for Women. And while they're, you know, long-standing kind of grocery store, newsstand staples, and supposed to be aimed at people who were my age at the time. Like I turned, you know, I must have just turned 40, 42, 43 at that time. I thought, this is not me. This is not anybody I know. Nobody is making these weird recipes.
Yeah, I was
Like
gonna say, like,
the fashion sense is weird. Like we're not doing liver cleanses. Like it was just very at the time, they were not doing stuff that I thought women my age wanted to read, because we don't stop being interested in our lives because we turned 40. We don't just start being interested only in, like, I don't know, House Beautiful or something like that,
yeah,
because we've turned 40, or we've had kids, or we've gotten married. And it like when I was there, I thought, I need to do this for people who are like me. Like, I need to publish something. I want to publish a Gen X grown-up version of sassy, which is really what I thought at the time, is like, those are my people. Like, the
yeah,
sassy people are my people. And
exactly.
there wasn't anything for women like us who are, kind of atypical, or not. I don't even know that we're atypical. We're not cookie cutter the way that, a lot of generations before us felt like they were. Like, if you're a woman in your 40s, you're married and you have a couple of kids and you probably stay home, or like whatever the traditional cliches were about, middle-aged women then. And none of us are like that.
Mm,
So I wanted to make something for women who are probably a little bit more urban than the typical demographic of these magazines, which really like, having worked there, I know, focused on women in the middle of the country who were, interested in weird recipes and liver cleanses. And I wanted to do women who are, probably more coastal. Like, I don't want to say coastal elite, because we're not elite. We're all struggling. But who are, maybe in the city, or maybe didn't have kids, or didn't get
right.
married, and were still into, like, dressing cool, or, whatever the thing was that wasn't, the kind of typical middle America um fluff that we get we get fed, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word. And so I was at Bauer for a long time, until COVID, and I got laid off. And then the New York team basically dissolved over the course of
Was
COVID.
Bauer in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey?
They were, but I was in the city. All of the digital team was in the city, but what we lost the office during COVID because everything shut down. We all worked from home and, kind of kept things afloat for a while. And then basically all the senior people got laid off because
Oh,
we were
no.
too expensive. And which is whatever. Like, it's a business move. I'm not mad about it anymore. But when I did, like, I kind of, flopped around from here and there, like, to digital different things. And I thought, this industry is so volatile that approach it, as I was single. Yeah, I got separated just before COVID. So I was a single mom with two
Mhm.
teenagers who needed to have stable income. So I was trying very hard to take my skills and, like, take them into, like, a paying world. So now I work in brand and marketing, which I think is a pivot that a lot of us have made, as our daytime jobs. But,
Right.
it's a wonderful company. I'm glad to have a job, in case you're listening. But, it's not it's not the creative outlet that I wanted. So I thought, I had the idea for Jenny in the back of my mind for a long time. And then my two co-founders got laid off on the same day from another, like, digital publishing company. And we had lunch and they were like, let's do your idea. And I was
That's
like, are
so
you
cool.
sure? Like, you got laid off today? Like, are you sure you
And
want
these
to
are
take
more
a minute?
money people? These are more money people or editorial people?
No money at all. We're not making money. Like, we're making like, this is the sad truth that will come out. Like, if anybody's looking for advice, don't think that you're going to be making money launching your own brand. But there are media people, people I'd worked in the industry with before, who had worked for me at different places that I'd worked. And we thought, well, I mean, let's give it a shot. Like, I know how to build websites. Like, I know how to make and having worked in the industry for so long, we know what people want to read. We know how to edit a story. We know how to do social media. And I thought, why are we waiting for no offense, Jonathan, why are we waiting for some man to hire us and tell us, like, now you can do the thing that you know how to do?
It's okay. I would never
So
hire you anyway because I don't hire. I don't get that power.
I can't
I'm not
hire
good.
anybody either.
Yeah.
But that was kind of this, like, just leap of faith we took. And we spent a summer basically building the site and getting together, like, a slate of launch stories, which we really were so fortunate to have, worked in the industry for as long as we had, and had really good relationships with a bunch of writers and former editors. And when we said, hey, this, we started building social and reached out to people and said, this is something that we want to do. We want voices like yours.
Right.
Do you think that you would be willing to contribute a story? And we launched with, I think, 12 or 15 stories.
And are you able to pay people, or just sort of a labor of love?
We're not. Everybody who's done it so far has contributed pro bono. And we tell them, whenever anybody has reached out, we're like, listen, we're not at a place where we can pay yet. We're not making enough money to pay even ourselves or pay for WordPress or any of this stuff. We're paying out of our pockets to do this because we have, daytime jobs. We're supplementing whatever we can with our regular salaries. And that's the sad state of things, truly. But on the plus side, we are getting to publish stories by women who are like us, for women who are like us. And it is really, really wonderful to hear there's a story up this week about Gen X and their complicated relationships with their mothers that I happened to write, but it is going gangbusters. And it's not a novel idea, but
it's a great idea.
Moms and daughters often have problems, but this particular thing was sparked by an idea that I saw on social media, and getting to have an outlet to write the story that I would have written for a magazine or wherever else, but to have it be mine and to know that I know people want to read this story it gives me it fills every creative need that I still have to, write something and I keep saying this in all the comments, it just feels so good to make you feel seen and to be seen by you. And I think that's a lot of what our writers are getting out of it. We want to be able to pay them. We want to get to a point where we're making, either ad dollars or whatever, magical way we find to make money. We want to pay them. And we always say, please send this somewhere else if you think you can get paid for it. And the response has been, no, I want to publish it at Jenny, which is humbling, and we're so grateful. But that's how we're kind of operating right now is, we've given a platform for writers who have a story published that they maybe don't want to publish somewhere else, or maybe some of them are new writers and are my age or around my age and haven't been able to break into a more traditional outlet. So we've kind of cultivated this really nice stable of really wonderful writers, and it's been great.
Can you start Bobby? I'm trying to think of what's the
you
one.
Want one?
I want the men's version of it.
Would it be Scott? What's the most popular 80s man?
I know came up with Jenny. Was Jenny because of the most popular? Yeah.
Well, yeah. So for a couple of things, we wanted a name that was reminiscent of sassy, something spunky, and we had a lot of spunky words we were kind of tossing around. And then Megan, my co-founder's brother, was like, "What about Jenny?" And then we started diving in deep, and it was, it is the most popular girl's name for women born, I think, between 65 and 1980 or 85. And we thought, it's got the spunkiness factor. And it really does reach out to everyone and kind of be like, yes, we are all part of this. 500. Our original tagline was, one, you love one, you are one. About Jenny.
I mean, Jennies were always really cute. When I was growing up, Jennies were the cute girls.
Was that it? I wished I could have been a Jennifer. Nobody was named Lili back in the 80s and 90s. So I desperately wished I could have been a Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer was most popular first names. I'm looking at, this is a book that I look at often. It's called Generations. It's by Jean Twenge, and she wrote some most popular names for Gen X. Lisa, Jennifer, Karen, Mary. So for guys, it's not as interesting. Michael, Jason, David, Christopher.
Mike. There's a bunch of Michaels.
There's a lot of
Michaels.
John.
And Jasons too.
A lot of Jasons. John, James, Rob. Nobody names their kid any of these names anymore. Nobody names their kid Robert anymore. It's crazy. or Jonathan. I mean, these are the most standard names.
Basic. They're super basic.
They're like vintage names. It's I'm sure our kids will start naming their kids Robert.
Absolutely.
cool, right?
That's what I was going to say. Like in 20 years, these names will
They all come
make a
around.
comeback. Yeah. Like all the Helens running around the playground right now.
Yeah, it's so funny. So how do you come up with your story ideas for this generation? I mean, do you guys take pitches, or do you come up, you said you came up with the one about the relationship with your mom. Like, how do
Yeah.
you think about that?
So we do take pitches. So we get pitched a lot of great ideas. Many of which we take because, it's something that we hadn't thought of. Like, the Adidas gazelles that are so trendy and everybody in New York is wearing them. Like somebody pitched us a great story about gazelles. And we're like, yes, that is a story we want to tell. But essentially when we started, we had a slate of ideas that we wanted to launch with, because it's like, these are stories that we just kind of sat around brainstorming, coming up with, as people who are part of the demographic and interested in, I don't want to say untold stories, but the way that I tend to think of the stories that I want to publish is I want stories that maybe not everybody else is going to publish. Maybe they can't publish because of advertisers. We have a story. One of our launch stories was about middle age being for women, being that I'm laughing because I'm gonna blush, but it's when you stop eating gluten and start eating pussy was one of them, which is like a shocking. Thank you for the very appropriate sound effect. But stuff like that where like, ooh, I'm not going to put that next to an ad, or a big company is not going to put that next to an ad. So like we can tell,
you can get away with that, which is nice to not have
Yeah.
burden. I mean, when we were at the women's magazines and the men's magazines, there were so many things we wanted to write about.
Oh my God.
Like, well, advertisers won't let us write about it. Some of the best
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, it's some of the best stuff. Like the stuff that, like,
I know.
I will tell you the headline of the story that I published this week would never get published anywhere else, which is, does an entire generation of women have a fucked up relationship with their mothers?
Yeah,
and like
put it that way. Yeah,
which is the truth. Like, and what I try to do and what we try to tell our writers is, yes, we want a story that people can relate to, but that is personal. Like we want you to. We think of most of what we write as personal narratives that have kind of a universal appeal. A universal appeal to our demographic.
Right. So that's so interesting. So you come up with this idea. Now it's just on a website, right? At this point, so have you thought about, leveraging other people's platforms to, like Substack, for example? Like it was interesting that I had Jane Pratt on the show, and which was really interesting because I hadn't actually ever talked to Jane Pratt, but she's like a legend, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
In our world, in our universe. And I don't know if you've seen it, but she launched a magazine on Substack specifically, which I thought was interesting, that she chose not to do a standalone website, but to have a Substack website. And I wonder about that decision.
We did think about that initially. Some of the things that kind of prevent, like I wanted a destination site, which again, maybe is not the right move. Like we've talked about, like, do we launch this as a Substack? Do we only want people to be able to find it if you're on our Substack? Do we want it to just, and like the initial thought was, I want to write a newsletter. Like that was it. Like it was, I want to write stories that are, about my, it starts from, funnily enough, like I used to write on chat boards, like on message boards, funny stories about my IVF that I went through. And like everybody else tells a really serious, I mean, now it's different because we've got the internet and it's expanded how people write about things, or at least what gets published. But I used to write about like the ridiculous things that had happened. And I liked having that kind of destination of like, writing when you do IVF in New York City, you have to transport the semen from home to the clinic in your armpit on the subway. Like it's hilarious and absurd. Like, and I would write stories about that because everybody would crack up and everybody would relate to them and love them. So I did want a place where people could go and find themselves and be like, oh yes, these are my people. But what is interesting is like we found the most community on social media, and we are talking about like, I mean, we would also love to do a podcast where it's just kind of like an idea around, sitting around the editor's table where you're like brainstorming the crazy things
Yeah.
that like you could write about, and then listening to the thing that becomes a
'Cause we've
story.
all
Or
been at those meetings, those editorial meetings.
and
They're so interesting. I know.
they're so fun. It is the thing that I actually miss. One of the things that I miss most about not being in that world anymore is like
Yeah.
the pitch
Sitting around
meeting.
the pitch meetings. I know. And the
Yeah.
meeting. They were fun, especially if you had an interesting, but a great team. I mean, it was really interesting
Yeah.
for me when I worked at women's magazines because I would be like the only guy in the room.
Right.
It was like, do you even know that I'm here right now? Like,
No.
it was just
No,
I was
we
like
don't.
invisible. But it was fascinating for me to have all these like really smart women like talking about, whatever was on their mind. I learned a lot about
Yeah.
women in those jobs. Yeah.
Well, and so one of the reasons I think having our own site was appealing is I did want the sense of control over it.
Mhm.
I own, well, Megan and I own everything right now, and
Who's
not
Megan?
that you.
Megan last name?
So sorry, Megan Kahn, who is my she acts as our editor in chief. She's
Okay.
one of my co-founders. She also came from the magazine world. She's a little bit younger. She's more zennial. She's like, we say women 40 and over because, that's such a huge group of women. But really, probably our sweet spot is, women who are from 40 to, 55 or so.
Mhm.
And, those tend to be the women who are engaging most online. But we definitely have women outside of that on either end of the spectrum, which I love because it makes the conversation so much more rich and universal. But I did want to own it. Like I have been burned by huge publishers so many times and like been thrown away as not only as an employee, but as like talent. Not that I'm talent, but like when you're writing, you're putting your heart out there and like letting people sell it for money, and a lot
Right.
of times when we're writing, like when you get disposed of because you're too old, that's not the direction we're going this year. We're not making enough advertising dollars or whatever it might be. I didn't want to feel disposable. So I wanted to own what we were doing. And it's one of the reasons that I haven't wanted to have something like, an angel investor or whatever. Like if I could
Yeah.
get one,
Yeah.
I don't, right. Like I don't want to owe somebody else anything back or have to answer to somebody else and who says like, I don't know that you should have published that story. Like, could you change that fucked up to like messed up? Like, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
I don't want
You
to
wanna
hear
be able
it.
to do what you wanna do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then in terms of just, I know you're not monetizing this yet, but if you ever do monetize it, you don't have to like my story about, Diary of He, this thing that I kind of put my heart and soul into. I didn't
Yeah.
really own that. I mean, it was crazy. I was basically giving away my rights to Hearst.
Right.
And yeah, they were giving me this great platform, but that was IP that I was creating that I didn't own. And it's a
Right.
strange thing that we do in magazines where we just basically give away our IP entirely to this other company. We don't get residuals. We don't get any kind of, and it's like I was so jealous of all my friends that are in like the TV business and media like that, films that are getting like residual checks for stuff that they wrote that wasn't even barely even got produced. It's unbelievable. Like all that content that I own, some of it's gone. I mean, a lot of it,
Right.
for magazines that I'm sure you found this too, for magazines that don't exist anymore. I can't even find it. I mean, luckily I saved some of my clips, but it's not even, there's no digital footprint of it. It's gone.
Yep.
Gone forever.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling. It's a weird feeling because we got so used to like being able to find everything online all the time. Like when
Yeah.
it's suddenly gone and that was your resource for your work or
Or
your
you'd be like, here's a link, and like, oh my God, the story I wrote about Snoop Dogg in 1999 is no longer exists. Like it's only exists in my little, and probably I could find the copy on eBay, and there's like I have clips next to me that I and then I don't want to send people my magazine clips. That makes the
I
if
know.
anything makes you
You're
seem like a
ancient.
dinosaur.
Yeah. I mean, I do still have a stack of magazines that I was in, and like I wanted to save one magazine that I was in the masthead of each magazine that I've ever worked for because I remember like how thrilled it made my mom. Like she's like, "Oh, I showed my friends your name in the magazine."
They love that. I remember one time I
that.
had an experience of being on a subway in New York and seeing somebody reading my article. That was the biggest thrill that I've ever had. Cause like you never had that experience. Like that's the one thing about writing magazines. It's not like getting up on stage and performing and everybody applauds. Like it's so like anonymous. Like nobody knows who you are and you don't get to see the reaction.
I had a little bit of that feeling when you're like, somebody recommended your site to me. And I was like, oh, people who I don't know
Yeah.
me.
It's kind of awesome, right? That's
Yeah.
why I'm doing this live, because I need the constant affirmation. And, by the way, there's, a bunch of people watching this now, which is nice because I do podcasts. I've been doing podcasts for years now, but you don't know who's listening and how many people.
know.
I mean, you find out later how many people listen, and it's kind of nice knowing that there's people here right now. And which, by the way, you can chime in at any moment. Just write a comment, and I will read your comment aloud and your questions for Lili. So I want to talk about the content in Jenny Mac, like what you're learning about women your age and a little younger, and a little older, whatever, that kind of sweet spot of between 40 and 55.
Yeah.
Like what stories are really resonating? Like when you, there must be like a sweet spot that you guys have, like, oh, that's a Jenny Mag story kind of thing.
There is. What's funny is, we always used to say at Red Book that if it had sex or chicken in it, it would always work. Like,
that's hilarious. Chicken?
Yes,
like recipes?
Yes. Chicken recipes and sex stories, like, always worked. And interestingly, a lot of our dating content does really, really, really well. And it's kind of surprising for, this age group. You would think that, most people are coupled up or settled down because that's the perception. Right. But even the ones who are, I think, still like being a voyeur into the life of somebody who isn't. So those stories tend to do really, really well. We've had a couple that got pretty big distribution in other, Gen X groups that, this like the one that's up right now is getting tons and tons of sharing. I think it's about relationships at the heart of things. Like, we thought that a lot of like the perimenopause and health related stuff would do well because people said that they wanted to read about this when we asked, like in social media, like, because we did take polls, like, what do you want to read about? Like, what are the things that are interesting to you? And our categories are very broad, but we thought like these are the basic things that people want to read about. We think, one is health and wellness, one is relationships, style and beauty, and then culture and entertainment, because as more of a it was almost an afterthought to do culture and entertainment, because we're like, well, what do we do that for things that don't fit? And that's also one of our bigger successes, because there's such a great cultural touchstone in the 90s that we end up writing a lot about, music and movies and things that either have a tie back to, our youth, or are things that you don't expect people our age to be going to or interested in traditionally, but they are, like discovering new bands and, talking about, your collection of concert tees and things like that. Like those kinds of, like Tracy Chapman story did really, really well. And interesting. I think that people enjoy, again, that sense of community and like, oh yeah, I remember that, or I was here, or yes, I totally, discovered that new band too. And it's so cool that you're talking about it. Cause I thought nobody else. Like, that is my favorite comment that I get when we're sharing thing is like, oh, I thought it was just me.
Yeah.
So I think
there is a power in that, and it's because the media, is not telling people that is what people are thinking about, because the media is so focused on youth all the time, right? That you're not, you don't have a place where you can go where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came, right? But like, when I wrote about, because I do a similar kind of writing. Now I need other people to write for me because doing it all myself is exhausting, but I do write about, here are the, what I consider the Gen X anthems. Like I wrote a story about like, what is the ultimate Gen X anthem? And I kind of went through like all these different songs and then kind of picked my favorite, the one that I thought was the Gen X anthem based on like the top 10,
Was it Wave of Mutilation?
No, it was definitely much more mainstream.
Okay.
It Smells Like Teen Spirit, only because I felt that song is sort of like, and I did a whole like breakdown of it. Like I went way too scientific with it, but kind of comes right in the middle where it's like the 80s people can appreciate it, but also the people that are kind of more 90s focused can appreciate it. Kind of came right in the middle there. But I also thought of like, Don't You Forget About Me. And like that song, is perfect for people like my gen, like really my age, which is older Gen X. And it's like, so anyway, that kind of stuff really resonates. And I think people just get really excited. Even when I reference like a Howard Jones song or something in a story, people are like, oh my God, things can only get better. And like people really love that. And it's funny because that's just my sense of humor and my kind of cultural references. I mean, I'm not that much of a dinosaur, but if I'm gonna make a cultural reference, it's probably gonna be like a Seinfeld or an old 80s song or um
Yeah.
and I think people just appreciate that. And it's nice that I don't have to be self-conscious about that anymore.
Right.
I'm sure you feel the same way where like I don't
Yeah.
have to pretend like I'm much younger than I am, which is when you're writing for
Totally.
magazines today, you have to like if you're gonna make some cultural reference, it has to be like a
Current.
current, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't make some funny like, you know,
Yeah.
harken back. And that to me, that's so freeing that I'm not having, when I write this stuff that I don't have to do.
It is. I mean, we do try to keep it funny when we are commenting like dinosaurs on the kids these
Right.
days. But, we had a story go up about I don't know if you've watched The Summer I Turned Pretty. So
Yeah,
that was
I haven't watched it, but my daughter is obsessed with it. But she's kind of an old soul too. So
well,
yeah,
it's probably more intended for people your
yeah,
daughter's age, and like so many middle-aged women were watching it that somebody pitched us a story about their take on it. And I was like, yeah, we're watching it too. Like, we absolutely want to know what your relationship spin on it is, and we'll publish that. But the thing that we end up doing a lot, on Fridays, we always play games on our social media because it's like, well, we've thought, it's a lot of work to do this outside
yeah,
of our regular jobs. And like, we want something that's kind of just fun and light. And we do a lot of, throwback things. So like, style, fashion, like we've got a game up today that's just about like, 90s trends that came back and ones that we would absolutely like boot off the island if we could, because we've got there's the cultural commonality of like absolutely every single one of us had those Steve Madden slides. Yes, we
right.
know. And how the hell could they be back right now? Like, so, it's fun to be able to have that shared experience, but to also be able to comment on something that's going on now and have the listener group that you're talking to be the same people with the same kind of, like you said, touchstones.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. So you mentioned that one thing that surprised you about the kind of content that people was resonating was the dating stuff, because you would think
Yeah.
that a lot of people in the age range you're catering to are married and maybe not as interested in that, but they were really super interested instant that whether they're actually dating or just living vicariously through people who are dating, which I'm always
Yeah.
fascinated to. Like all my single friends, I'm like, tell me more. Because
Yeah.
it's like, especially because it's so different now.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
don't recommend it. Just
oh
gonna
yeah,
say.
you're in that world, huh?
Yeah, after a 25-year marriage, trying to jump back in right now where like we're
Wow.
swiping, like I don't have the capacity for.
Yeah, the swiping is hard. Although I think one of the things I've learned, I'm in this, I've mentioned this a few times on the podcast. So I'm in this like men's group, and it's
Mhm.
something that is actually started by my therapist, where she like took a bunch of her clients and put us together on Tuesday nights, and we just talk to each other about like what's on our mind. She's in the room, but anyway, as a result, I kind of hear about other guys, what they're going through, and it's just guys.
Yeah.
And some of the guys are in their 50s and are back to dating because they're newly divorced or whatever. And like they were so worried, and I don't know if it's the same, that it would just be like the loneliest, saddest thing, but they actually are having quite active dating lives,
Oh,
and their
sure. Yeah.
stock is pretty high up there in the. So I mean,
100%.
it's not
I'm
so
sure.
dark. I think for those worried that it will be like terrible, right, if they left a marriage or something, like
Yeah.
one of the things I learned is that like it's pretty active out there, and maybe even better than when we were, if you were dating in the 80s or the 90s before.
Oh, for sure, because
More
the
opportunity,
the pool is wider. I was,
much higher.
about ready to like, insult these men, but like the insult that I have absolutely applies to women too. However, so I won't insult either one,
You can
but what I
insult.
will say
I'm
is
curious.
like I thought like, oh, those men probably think it's better because now they can date 20 and 30-year-olds still, and like
Yeah,
women can't. But we are like, that is one of our biggest, most like juicy stories is like, the 40-something-year-old single mom
yeah.
dating the 20 somethings who are super into it. And like, it's a trend and I don't know
That's
why,
the
but like,
thing. I've heard from other people that like a lot of that like they're like younger guys, like Gen Z or whatever, millennial guys are like, you're hot. I love Gen X women. Like they're hot.
I have too. And I like, for me personally, like I want to be able, like, and this is unfair, but like I want to be able to have a conversation. Not that I couldn't with a 20-something-year-old man, but I do like that, the common thread of living at the same decade. So I haven't, but I know tons of women who absolutely, I mean, I limit my little age brackets to much closer to my own age, but other women who are dating around and like, it kind of sounds fun. It's like when you're dating a 27-year-old or whatever it
I
might
have
be.
a friend, she's always like, yeah, my millennial. She just calls her boyfriend my
My
millennial.
millennial.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's cute. Well, in fairness to the guy in my group who's doing this, he's staying. It's like a thing for him where he wants to stay in his age range, which
Yeah.
is admirable because yes, you could be a dog and try to date, whatever 30-year-olds if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Zach from Diary of He certainly would have done that.
Oh, he would have for
He would have been
sure.
he would have
For
gone
sure.
way.
I actually wish I could read his divorce era. So like if you want to write it again and
I want to revisit Zach. I wonder if there's some people who still remembers that. He had a fan club. It was so funny. One time I did and we're talking about this Diary of He thing. For those who just joined us, I wrote this fictional male diary for Redbook for Lili way back in the day. And I was pretending to be this single crazy guy. But people treated him as if it was real. And we had these live chat sessions and people would ask me questions as if I was Zach. And I was like, oh my God, this is so bizarre. People think that Zach is like a real person. And I was like, and he's a horrible person. So like the fact that I was like, answering for him and like commenting about him was hilarious. But anyway, like I said, it was an alter ego. It was like the person maybe that I wanted to be, but would never be in real life.
Right.
But I knew a lot of Zach's. Anyway, so in contrast, so the question of the dating thing is super interesting that kind of surprised you. What did you put up that you thought, oh, this is what people are this is what 45, 55-year-old women are going to be interested in that actually wasn't as interesting, like the opposite, like they don't seem to be that interested in. Like you mentioned health, right?
Yeah, it's a bunch of health stuff. So, we've had a couple of like health related stories that did do well, but it's because of the personal narrative that's with them. Like we had a woman who wrote about finding out she had MS and like going on this hike anyway. And like she's a wonderful, wonderful writer and like a comedian who's like, we were so thrilled to get her story. But I think it's more like her as story and her storytelling that made it do well. But we started out with wanting to run this kind of monthly column about like perimenopause because we literally everybody that you talk to is talking about it, and like any ad we're getting as a demographic on Instagram is about like somebody trying to sell you some sort of perimenopause thing. But when we write the stories, like we solicited real questions. We made up the first one or two, but like we solicited real questions from people and they just are kind of duds. Like, my thought is that it might feel like homework, like, we like them. I stand by them. I think it's good. I think it's good content. And, I hope that in the long run, like they do, like they tend to keep getting traffic, but they're not like the runaway hits. Although I will say, when we launched, I did write a 3-part series about having done Manjaro and having it almost feel like it was killing me, and then stopping it. And that did well. But I think it's because, 2 years ago, it was at a time when these weight loss drugs were, very newly available to a wide range of people. And there hadn't been any negative stories that I'd seen. And I thought, this is the story that I am telling. And that does very well to this day. But again, I think it's because of the drama that's involved in it.
Yeah, there's something about, right.
Yeah.
It's new and trendy and people are thinking about it. But like something about perimenopause, there's also something maybe slightly depressing about like talking about, like, I don't know, people don't want to talk about, but it's like guys talking about like belly fat. It's like, ugh,
right.
Like, yeah, I hate it. It's annoying. We have it, but it's like, do I want to keep reading about it? And also the way to get rid of it, everybody has a different technique. And I don't know, Men's Health might be the better place to go for that than,
and I know that people are interested in that stuff and they are reading it. It's just not what they want from us, which is it's kind of
well, once you offer them the things they can't get other places, then maybe that's like we're coming to you for that stuff. That I can't find. I can find things I can read Women's Health and all those other publications. About that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We've done a bit of political stuff too. Like we don't stay away from it, which a lot of women's magazines will stay away, RIP Teen Vogue. But we've written about that, like when it's feels our responsibility to do so. Like it would feel irresponsible not to. Like I wrote a story, a fast follow, the day after the last election, and we've done stories about the politics in medical care, like, and how it shouldn't be there. And so those do well, and about women leaders and things like that. And it's just not the same kind of huge success, but I think they're important nonetheless. Like
You still want
don't.
to do it.
Yeah,
You could
absolutely.
literally write a sex story every single,
Every single
and
day.
the ratings would. This is
Yeah.
always a challenge that I had in every publication, is that sex sells, and we did know that literally every time we wrote a story about sex, and either men's or women's magazines I work for, it would be like the most highly rated. Remember Mark Clements? There used to be this guy, Mark Clements, that would come in and rate. This is really old days. He was a research guy. He would literally go through the magazine and somehow he would figure out, through his database, what was the most read, like, headline, what was the most,
Right.
this is like pre-internet, pre-Google.
Yeah. When they were doing this, like, with
And he
actual
would
surveys.
come in with these magazines that would be all like, had all these stickers on them and stuff like that. And be like, okay, this, and of course, it was like kind of like every time it was about sex or about
it's not a surprise.
It's like so high. But then, but that wasn't the stuff that the advertisers were interested in. And also you wanted it to be slightly balanced, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Okay. So your generation, as a woman, what do you think is the most, because I'm imagining that both men and women are watching and going to be listening to this. What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about your generation as a woman?
I don't know that it's entirely misunderstood. Or maybe that's because of like my own echo chamber. But I think the fact that we are unafraid to speak truth to power, and like whatever that power might be, like people usually say that in a political setting, but a lot of the negative feedback we've gotten on this big story that's popping off this week is like, how dare you say that your mothers were trying their hardest on this like Gen X and their mother's story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of the response that has come to those kinds of comments has been like, yeah, too bad that they tried their hardest. It still had this effect. And this is how, things feel. And we're going to not be quiet about it. And I think that's the trend that we see across things that are affecting Gen X women now, which whether it's, perimenopause, where, people say like, oh, you act like you're the first generation to go through this. And it's not. We're the first ones that said, this is bullshit. Why has nobody told us about this? Why haven't people said what they're going through, or given us pointers of how what's coming down the road for you, or things like that? And I think that's the same with this, like the Mother article. It's
Tell me a little bit. So I wish I had read the Mother article before.
Oh, it's okay. It just went up.
Can you? Okay, so I'm fine. But for those who haven't read it yet, and I encourage you all to go to Jenny Mag and read it, but give me the Cliff Notes version. Like, what did you learn?
So it was truly like I saw a thread by this author that said, has anybody ever done a study about Gen X and their complicated relationships with their mothers? And then everything that was everyone who was responded to that thread was like, holy shit, yes, I thought it was just me. And then, I tweeted or I responded something, snarky, saying like, yeah, but I'm sure if you ask them, they would say, I'm sorry that you feel that way, which is like a very common, boomer and silent generation mom thing to say. And as parents, we act very, very differently. So I had this kind of light bulb moment when I was like scrolling through all of these comments on my train ride the next morning, when I was like, oh shit, it isn't just me. Like, I'm not a bad daughter. It's just like, this is messed up. Like what they learned, how we were raised, like, and there's been a lot of really interesting discussion everywhere we've posted it about like, they raised us to be independent because they were not allowed to be, and the kind of discord that happens because of that exact thing that they raised us to be. And they're non-confrontational, and they're passive aggressive, and like, generationally, there's things that we all like, we say things, as a Gen X generation, maybe we say things too much, like maybe we're too truthful, and maybe things should be nicer or not said. But like, they were that way, and we, had a boomerang reaction.
So we corrected for it and became sort
Yeah,
of
we corrected. And then, a lot of the response has been like, well, they were trying their best. And the thought that, being that they couldn't do any better because they were raised that way, and so on and so on. But this generation of mothers if they've had kids, they've not done the same things that their mothers have done. We've tried to raise our kids, or many of us, I'm speaking in gross generalizations here, as I do in the article. And I realize that this does not apply to every single person. So
disclaimer, but it's okay. It applies to a lot of us. So just keep going.
and that's the trend. It's just a trend in the data sense, and not in the like, oh, everybody's hating their mom. Like, that's not the trend. The trend is so many people feel this way. And we are raising kids to be emotionally aware, and apologize to them if we do something wrong that they call out, and to treat them as like full independent human beings, and not as our little apron string things. So it's gotten a remarkable amount of feedback from the women who, it was shared into a Gen X Facebook group, which is, it's like 500,000 people in that Facebook group. And
That's amazing.
I posted it there. I was like, oh, I think you guys might like this. And the comments right now are around 1,000. I'm trying to keep up with 1,000 comments there, because,
now, is it a Jenny Mag Facebook group? What's the Gen X?
It's not. No, it's called, it's
just curious for my own Gen X.
It's called
research.
Gen X women, hold on. Gen X women are sick of this shit.
The group. You put it up there and it got a tremendous amount of response.
That's amazing. I just posted it because I thought like people would be interested. Like there's often conversation there about parenting, or your parents and parenting your own kids. And I thought, oh, they might like this.
Well, we put a lot of money into therapy trying to deal with the relationship, like you said, the complicated relationship we've had with our parents. And was your argument that that they weren't confrontational, that they were kind of more distant, a little bit out of sight, out of mind? This is why we were the latchkey kids, right?
Right.
We were, almost the opposite of what we experience now, where your parents are involved in like every single activity, all your events, shuttle you around in your car, in their car to all the different school events and club and all that kind of stuff. And it's like,
my father keeps mocking me I have twins who are freshmen in college right now. My father keeps mocking me every time I say like, oh, I hope he's okay, or I hope she's okay. And he's like, they're 18. What more can you do? And I'm like, if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about our parents' generation, is like, well, I've done my job. You're off. Go ahead.
And do you think we've overcorrected? Probably a little bit.
I think some people definitely have. There's a bunch of one of the things I cite in there, which is like what I joke about to my friends, is my hope of being open and transparent with my kids. Like one day they'll say to me like, dude, could you just not tell me everything? Like, dude, can we not talk about everything that has to, we don't have to be open and communicate and listen to about every single thing. We'll find out the ways that we fucked up later. Like once they're in therapy, and they're talking about their parents, like we'll find out. But I think that the effort that we've made as parents is really to parent. And like, even that as a verb in and of itself, like I think parents before us, like they raised children.
Mm-hmm.
And
parent.
It's almost like, farm stock. Like you care for them, you feed them, you make sure they have the best of your capabilities, and nice grass to chew on. And for us, like I think our generation has been much more invested in the emotional well-being of our children, and probably because of the amount of prosperity in the 80s, and the way that things are just different. Like the struggle, while it is very real right now, the struggle is very different than what our parents faced, and what we find important, I think, is different than what our parents found important in raising kids. I don't, I mean, there's, somebody said to me, like, this feels like it should be a book. I'm like, I'm sure there are books. And there could be a million more words written about it. And every single reason and every single experience that people have shared has been, valid of why we feel this kind of complicated way about our own mothers. And it's nice to again, share in the community of that.
Yeah, and know you're not alone. And I'm curious, you know, if men have the same kind of complicated relationship with their mothers from
Yeah.
Gen X, and if there's a different dynamic there. And then we go to the fathers,
Right.
which is,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, being competitive and, you know, et cetera. I have to really think about that before I even can answer. But
Well, for
my
sure.
mother watches a lot of these, so mom, if you're watching, just it's okay.
Yeah, no, and I don't, and like truly do not mean this to hurt. I mean, I don't
No,
want to hurt my
my mom
mom's
gets hurt no
feelings
matter
or
what I say.
anybody's, but like that is like why people don't talk about it is because like I don't want to say that out loud because like I'm gonna look like a dick, you know, like
Yeah.
saying like, well, I didn't get what the kind of love I wanted from my mommy. Like that sounds like like it was like all right, but you're fine. Like let's move on.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of intense anxiety and feelings and therapy that people have experienced because of things that happen. So like we can talk about it a little bit.
No, I'm glad you're talking about it. It's great. I'm excited to read that article. This has been so fascinating. Let me see if there's any questions or comments. I'm going to go on to does anybody have any comments for Lili? It says, with the surfeit of 80s nostalgia over the past decade, one of the most important things has been curiously memory hold, the fear of nuclear Armageddon. Oh, just I guess they're saying because somebody had mentioned, I guess this was back when we were talking about the songs that were the most 80s songs, and somebody mentioned 99 Luft Balloons as being that is definitely a song that had a lot of resonance in sort of the no nukes 80s.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like that is true, that we don't really talk about, like, that was such an existential fear that people had when we were growing up. It doesn't feel like now it's AI. Like there's other fears. Like I'm sure.
Yeah, it wasn't just existential. We were hiding under our desks as
it
practice.
was real.
Like
It was real,
yeah.
but that seemed to be the big thing. And now I feel like that's still a threat, but we don't talk about that as much as some of the other things, like, I don't know, the environment being completely destroyed, or AI taking over all our lives and our jobs. And so it's interesting how the fears change, and it has been memory hold. And by the way, there's still nukes, and like Putin has nukes and he's in war with Ukraine. And, I mean, something bad could happen.
Anytime Trump gets testy with North Korea or Russia, I'm like, oh, I've got flashbacks to the 80s, like hiding under your desk.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know. You mentioned that you had two freshmen in college, twins. So you're an empty nester now.
Yes.
We just did an episode about empty nesting. How are you coping with that? Are you finding it freeing, or are you just going crazy and miss them like mad?
It's been like because I like them so much. I mean, I love teenagers. First of all, like I find them fascinating and interesting and cool. So I love them. I know that like predisposes me to saying I like my own, but I do. Like I liked their company very much. And I miss them. I miss seeing them every day, but I'm not lonely. Like I think it'll take a while to get there. Like there's a lot of dinner that I cooked over the past 18 years, and breakfast and lunch, and not having to do that has been lovely. But I did have a lot of pre-grief, like their senior year of high school.
I was more sad. I mean, I've got one out in one home, but I started getting very sad before he left. Like, I would cry in my car thinking about it.
Oh, absolutely. Like the number of times I cried that year, I don't even think I could count it. And it's especially, it was at like the last, like this is the last Christmas that they're going to be at home. This is the last.
There's an article, preempty nest. It's a preemptive nest, because you're kind of like protecting yourself before the big moment. Like, and then the big moment happens. You're like, this is not so bad, actually.
Yeah. Like I came home the evening I dropped my son off, who was the second one to go. I came home and the apartment was, like a movie scene empty. Like it was exactly as I had left it, but it was so much emptier, like that kind of thing. But then the next day I was like, oh, it's fine. Like I've cried all my tears now.
Right.
And like this part it is nice to be able to like not have to worry about rushing home to get to the grocery store to cook dinner. Then I can cook dinner and like do my Jenny work and then, hang out with him while I can. Like all of that pressure has kind of been relieved. Of course, like as everybody says, like the challenges are different, but like there does seem to be an incredible amount of relief of my time that I feel. But that's just the kind of mom I was. Like I really wanted to be present and with them as much as I could whenever it was an opportunity to be with them.
That's two for the price of one.
Yeah. I
Because
don't,
again, they're not different ages, which I'm dealing with, which is like you have to kind of meet them at different places in their lives.
yeah, I think that's harder. Like, genuinely, like there were obviously physical difficulties with
Yeah.
2 babies at one time. It was super tough. But I always said to people, like, I feel like it's way harder to have like a 2-year-old and a newborn, or like a 7th grader and a 10th grader. Like
Yeah.
those differences amplify, I think, the like stress on either side. And like for me, it was always like, well, they're both going through all the same things at basically the same time.
Are they
And
close?
they're super close. They're, it's a boy, they're boy and girl, and like their relationship is like no other sibling relationship that I've ever had or witnessed. Like it's cool. Like they're not that weird, creepy, like twin speak kind of twins, but they're super close. Like I think both of them will make excellent partners one day because they've had like a marriage and basically like lived with the opposite sex for their whole lives in a way that like a married couple would. And
Are they at the same college?
They're not. No, they're my daughter is way upstate and my son is just north of the city studying music as well.
Oh, cool.
And it's cool. It's like it's a really cool phase of life, I think.
Wow, we'll have to compare notes on studying music.
Yeah.
Composing and producing.
Yep, that's what he's doing. He's doing studio composition. He's studying songwriting right now, and I think he's just the coolest.
Offline, we'll talk about where he's
and my daughter, unfortunately, is a writer too. To everybody listening, like I've got a musician.
My daughter
and a
does
writer.
not. My daughter loves to write, but she does not seem to be going to that path, which I'm greatly relieved. She's the one one person in my family who decided that she doesn't want to be a creative, and I'm like, what? Like that's you
mean you're gonna make money instead?
Yeah,
what?
Actually, might want to be a lawyer, she said the other day, and I'm like, that's exciting.
Great.
All right, Lili.
I tried to push it.
The magazine is called Jenny Mag. It is, well, it's a mag, but it's online. But we like the idea of mag. It is really great to read. I really recommend it for Gen Xers and beyond. Lili, it's so great to catch up with you and see you again. And I'm just thrilled you're thriving and doing what you want to be doing. And I know times are tough, but it's nice to be able to still make a living writing, being creative, right? I mean, we can't. I'm trying.
It is. It's a necessity for me. Like if I wasn't getting any money at all, I'd still do it. And that's, that's the unfortunate thing.
It's your burden.
It is. It is. I'll carry.
All right. Well, I'm going to put on my son's music to close us out here. You have been listening to Small Talk on Substack, and thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back next Friday with another episode. So we'll see you all soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.